save the date. Next week is a national holiday. Next Monday, November 14th, Jimdependence Day. The second anniversary of the Jimquisition going independent, fully funded by you lot via Patreon, a method of business that just this weekend was called by one of my detractors e-begging. And, well, that hurt me so much I wept openly into my nasty stacks. But I'm going to be away during the weekend of that holiday. I'll be flying back on the Monday. There will be an episode. And, you know, I'll try and make it extra fun for you. I'm going to be in New York on the weekend starting from the 11th. If you are in New York, you know, maybe you'll see me hanging around the Clutter Art Gallery because they're doing a Boglin art show. That's a real art show that's really happening, and you damn right I'm going to be there. But right now, let's talk about Titanfall 2.
Titanfall 2 is not just a great game, it's yet another shooter release this year that could be a serious contender for Game of the Year status if they resist the temptation to toss microtransactions in, which they seem to be going back and forth on. In any case, I was stunned by how good Titanfall 2 is. Its campaign is way better than I expected, with fantastic level design and world building, as opposed to what could have just been a lazy facsimile of the multiplayer experience, and an online component that expands and improves upon the original in several positive ways. All told, Titanfall 2 is so good I hate that it wasn't the first game. As far as I'm concerned, this is definitely the series' debut, and it might very well be a Titanfail. At the time of talking, analysts are predicting Titanfall 2's sales to be, and I quote, substantially disappointing, having lowered their expectations for the game's performance. Following its release, EA's stock lowered by 3%, and in the UK, Games Press are already calling the game a flop. It sold less copies than the original at launch, despite the first being Xbox One exclusive on console. In the charts over there, it came in behind Battlefield 1, FIFA 17, and Skyrim Special Edition, a re-release of a 5-year-old game. By contrast, the original Titanfall stayed number 1 in the charts for 5 weeks, and in an industry where sequels are expected to eclipse their predecessors, this is not looking good at all. Electronic Arts itself has simply stated it's committed to the series, dancing around the many calls to comment on T2's performance. Whatever EA might say, however, I think most of us can agree that the publisher dropped the Titan ball on this one. Let's address the most obvious problem with Titanfall 2's release, dropping a mere week after Battlefield 1, a game that had generated a ton of press, was part of a long-established franchise, and went on to sell damn well, as one would expect. Electronic Arts has defended this decision, which was apparently locked down months ago, as if that should matter, and claimed that the two games appealed to different audiences, with BF1 aimed at strategic players, while T2 was going for fans of fluid, kinetic gameplay. The problem with that argument, however, is that EA's games have pushed to be homogenous for years now, to the point where an EA shooter might as well be its own genre. No matter how different the games might be, when EA puts a shooter out, there are elements people have come to expect, and I don't think the mass market audience really knows or cares about the differences between big strategic shooters and fluid kinetic shooters. They just want a game to shoot shit, and Battlefield came out first, was more recognisable, and clearly the one they chose. This doesn't even touch on the fact that it's just a really dumb idea to go into competition with yourself, which is exactly what EA did. It offered 2 first-person shooters at largely the same audience. The line about these games appealing to different players is bullshit when you talk about the main percentage of customers out there, those ones I talked about that just want to shoot stuff. Make no mistake, these games were seeking and needed the exact same customers. If what EA had said about the different audiences was correct, well then Titanfall 2 would have and should have done at least as well as Titanfall, but it didn't, because what EA said was bollocks. On top of that, we got FIFA 17, another major draw for the wider, more casual market, and Skyrim, which launched on the same day and is a powerhouse draw of a game despite being so old and merely a re-release. Titanfall 2 was going up not just against 2 other huge EA properties, but Bethesda's crown jewel. Even worse, it released just a week before Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, sandwiching it between 2 massively overshadowing shooters. In terms of sheer contest, Respawn's game had Titanfallen at the first hurdle. It's a bad time of year to launch most games anyway, especially this year. Usually we see a lot of games, especially games like this, pushed back to January, February or spring to make way for the heavy hitters, but this year a lot of games are holding their ground and sticking to their October-November dates. Call of Duty just came out, we had Battlefield 1 and FIFA Valhalla and Skyrim, we've got Watch Dogs 2, Final Fantasy 15, Dishonored 2 and Pokemon Sun and Moon all due this month, lots of different games in different genres, but nonetheless all contributing to a jam-packed month that will annihilate the wallet of anybody interested in just a few of them. What Titan tool decided this was a good time? The fact this was a previous console exclusive can't have helped either, suddenly introducing PS4 owners to Titanfall 2. Not Titanfall with a subtitle or some other name, but a bold as brass Titanfall 2 does not exactly send a great message for anybody wondering if they'd know what the fuck was going on. I can only speak anecdotally here, but I've heard of PS4 users unsure about buying Titanfall 2 because they don't know if they need the first. You don't need the first, by the way. This more or less is the first game, it's just got a 2 slapped on it. It really does feel like the first true entry in the series, so calling it anything other than Titanfall 2 would have been far better than what they did Titan call it. Then there was the beta, which had a notable backlash attached to it. Boneheaded moves from a design standpoint saw the rate at which players could access Titans determined by kills only, rather than a timer that could be reduced by player performance. Other problems included a flat, open, relatively dull map, and lengthy enemy highlights that dramatically impacted sneaking. There was a significant outcry to the changes and a bad first impression given to those who tried the game early. The decisions were Titan foolish, and with everything else going against the game, this is an instance where a beta could have done more harm than good. All this seems to have combined to create these reports of disappointing sales, as well as stories involving low player bases across all systems, limited player numbers which will do nothing but further harm the game's ability to gain any traction in its tougher post-launch phase. And it sucks. Big time. Not just because Titanfall 2 is really good, because it is, but also because it's going some way towards bucking a few of EA and the industry at large's shittier business trends. There is no season pass attached to Titanfall 2, none of that glorified DLC pre-ordering where stuff has either been clearly carved from the main game or been nebulously promised with no guarantee it's something you want. Additionally, Respawn has promised not to charge for any additional weapons or maps that make their way to the game post-launch, further bucking Electronic Arts' modus operandi for similar games. This is a model that's proven successful among other companies, but it's not the EA way, and if EA gets burned by Titanfall 2's sales, it won't see that proven success, and it can always use this game's failure as justification that it doesn't work for them. Of course, the microtransaction issue is still a knotty one, and with Respawn remaining coy about them, they're at least currently promising that buying the game gets you everything. Now that's a quote that stands in stark contrast to the notorious quote from former EA CEO John Riccitiello. Respawn made a strong statement here, and if Titanfall 2 goes down in history as a dud, that statement goes with it. Even worse, this is not the first time Electronic Arts has been to this particular rodeo. You may not know, or even believe it, but it wasn't all that long ago that EA wasn't a complete and total cunt. It was about 2008, and EA was doing good things. Riccitiello was facing the company as a humble man admitting to the corporation's past mistakes, even saying things like he believed the $60 rigid pricing structure needed changing, something I still say to this day and something EA never actually made good on in fairness. Additionally, the company was investing in new intellectual property, games like Dead Space and Mirror's Edge. It hadn't yet become obsessed with defeating Call of Duty, so it wasn't churning out desperate guff like Medal of Honor Warfighter, and while it still loved its DLC, it was nowhere near as bad as it is today. But for everything EA was doing right by the customer, the market was not responding. Like Titanfall 2, both Mirror's Edge and Dead Space, critically well-received games with passionate fan bases, were historically considered disappointing. That same year, it had been similarly let down by Burnout Paradise, an established game series, but an entry that tried new things and again earned a fair amount of praise. While some companies become successful by investing in new ideas and treating their customers less like cattle, it would appear that EA's attempts to do so are not rewarded, and while many of its own decisions can be found at the source of Titanfall 2's current situation, it's probably not how those in charge of the company are gonna see it, especially if seeing it that way means they take a portion of the blame for anything. Meanwhile, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which basically plays like a very, very poor person's Titanfall, has embraced microtransactions to their fullest, with many going so far as to say the game's gone completely pay to win, with superior weaponry only found in the game's fee-to-pay supply drop economy. This is in addition to a season pass, paid DLC across the board, and the infamous way in which Modern Warfare Remastered was changed to the game in a pathetic attempt to retain COD's status as the King of November. Now, you'll find reports that Infinite Warfare sales are down 50% compared to last year, but that doesn't mean the game didn't do fantastically. It did. COD's star might be on the wane, but it's still a star, and Titanfall 2 is barely a speck in the cosmos. And that's wrong! Damn it! That's not how the world should fucking work. That's not how the world should fucking work, where great games with fresh ideas are destined to be considered flops, while a greed-driven juggernaut of sluggish half measures and microtransactions still wins. But that is how the world works, and it's shit, and we're all gonna die one day, and it's all EA's fault. Yes, it's actually EA's fault that we all die. I don't tell you that in school.
My lawyers have asked me to read the following statement. It is not Electronic Arts' fault that we or anybody died, or will die. There is no link between Electronic Arts as a corporation, or indeed a necromantic entity, and the mortality rate of human beings, or any flora or fauna on God's green earth. That is, if you believe in a god or not, we're not one to judge here, thank God for me. Jim Sterling would like to apologise for any slanderous statements that were made to EA, and for potentially implying, even as a joke, that it's their fault we all die. For God's sake, Jim, are you trying to get another lawsuit going? You're already blacklisted by half the industry as it is. It's about time you kept your big mouth shut. Oh wait, no, that bit's for me. That's... Ignore most of what I said there, except the bits where I apologised for saying that EA will cause us all to die. Because they won't. That was just a goof. Even if it is true.
Oh, Ubisoft!
It's fitting that we just had an episode about EA, because we're going to chat about the EA of the EU, Ubisoft. What have those wacky fuckers been up to this time? Well, it's Watch Dogs 2 time, it's around the corner, and it's following in the footsteps of its predecessor, with a spreadsheet required to check out what you're going to get in all of the multiple collector's editions that are available for the game. For fuck's sake. Let's have a look at what's available, shall we? Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. Fucking lock screen. Gloves. I really should have brought this up before I started. We are looking at the Standard Edition, $59.99, the Deluxe Edition, $69.99, the Gold Edition, $99.99, the San Francisco Edition, $114.99, the Wrench Jr. Robot Collector's Pack, $165.99 fucking cents! Whoa! Oh, and the Return of Dead Set Collector's Case, $165.99. I almost missed that one, Jesus Christ. So we need another chart. Sorry that I'm just looking at my phone. I realise it's rude, but I've got to keep an eye on exactly what we're looking at here. So you need a chart to work out whether you're going to get the game, the deluxe pack, the season pass, the lithographs, the map of San Fran, the DedSec themed laptop stickers, the Marcus figure, the Marcus scarf and cap replica, the exclusive 64-page art book. Jesus Christ, the DedSec art Marcus figurine and the Wrench Jr. robot. I mean, you can more or less guess that the robot's going to be in the robot one. But fuck me running. And this is on top of the trailer they recently released for a season pass, which basically seems to have a fuckload of content in it that they already know about that makes you wonder why it isn't in the main game. Just one of those situations. That trailer really is a celebration of everything ostentatious and tacky and shit in AAA gaming.
With the Season Pass, the experience of Watch Dogs 2 becomes even bigger, more immersive, and definitely more T-Bone, 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 T-Bone. and take on smarter and more lethal enemies with an all-new difficulty level. The massive Human Conditions DLC, 3 new hour-long story missions, a brand new co-op mode, and an all-new story mission. The Season Pass also gives you immediate access to fresh outfits, vehicles, weapons, and more. In Watch Dogs 2, players will experience a massive T-bone.
You're so greedy! And I'm saying that, and look at the size of me, I love the taste of food, and I'm calling you greedy! Stop it! Just... if you need spreadsheets to let customers know what's in multiple versions of your game, you've gone too far, okay? Spreadsheet time is too far! That's bad time! Just stop it, alright? Gee. I'm not actually that mad about it. It's just baffling and almost hilarious as an example of just the level of near fall of Rome decadence that the AAA big budget game industry has reached. Just that, I mean, oh god, the avarice, the naked, nude, untastefully nude avarice. It's unbelievable. By the way, Ubisoft, how are we on review copies for Watch Dogs 2? It's just, you know, everyone's blacklisting me left, right, and centre, and it'd be nice if I could get... I'm not getting one.